Mr. Paul was a man of quiet wealth. He never showed off, but everyone in town knew his name. From hotels to schools, transport companies to real estate, his name was quietly behind many things. He inherited his parents' empire young and had multiplied it with patience and wisdom. But Paul wasn't only rich, he was kind, especially to the family of the woman he loved. Lucy. When he first met her, she was a secretary in a small office, struggling to make ends meet. She had dreams, but no one to support them. Mr. Paul saw something in her, something gentle, bright and eager. He married her not for beauty, though she was very beautiful, but for her calmness and hope. From the moment they got married, her life changed. Paul gave her the world. He bought her a boutique, which later grew into one of the most fashionable stores in town. Every month, he made sure she had the latest designer bags, perfumes and phones. He flew her to Italy to shop, to Dubai to rest, to Paris to see the lights. Lucy lived like a queen. But Paul didn't stop at Lucy. He lifted her whole family, her younger siblings. He paid their school fees from primary to university. Her elder brother, who was jobless and bitter, was sponsored to Canada to start a new life. Her parents, who once lived in a leaking house, were moved into a beautiful 3-bedroom flat, all from Paul. To them, he was more than a husband. He was their blessing. They said thank you at first. They praised him at first, but slowly, without him noticing, their hearts changed. They stopped showing gratitude. They started making demands. They started acting like they owned him. Paul would hear whispers sometimes. If not for Lucy, where would he see a wife like her? He's lucky to marry into our family. We made him what he is. At first he laughed it off, but one day it stopped being funny. It was a Sunday evening. Paul had just returned from a business trip. He was tired but happy to be home. He walked into the sitting room and greeted everyone. Lucy was on her phone. Her sister was painting her nails. Her mother was watching television. No one looked up. "Good evening," he said again, standing with his briefcase. Lucy glanced at him. "You're back?" He smiled. "I missed you." She shrugged. You didn't call me much." "I was busy at the meetings." She didn't respond. Her mother said, "Hope you brought something for us. All that traveling, you must have seen 1 or 2 fine clothes." He forced a smile. "I did, but something broke inside him that day." He went into the room and sat on the bed, watching his wife from the doorway as she laughed with her sisters in the parlor. No one asked if he had eaten. No one cared about his tired eyes or the pain in his back. They only cared about what he brought. And that night, as he laid beside his wife, who faced the other side of the bed scrolling through her phone, he whispered to the darkness, "If everything I have disappears tomorrow, will these people still love me?" There was no answer, only silence. But his mind had already made a decision. Mr. Paul could not sleep that night. Even with Lucy beside him, breathing softly, his heart remained awake. The ceiling above him felt heavier than usual, and the silence of the room was filled with questions that had no answers. He rose quietly, not wanting to wake her, and walked to the balcony. The city lights blinked in the distance, but he did not see them. His eyes were fixed on the past. He remembered the way Lucy used to run to the door to welcome him home, the way her eyes lit up when he surprised her with flowers. The gentle, "Thank you," she always whispered after every small gift, that Lucy was gone. He pulled out his phone and scrolled through his contacts. Maxwell, his best friend since childhood, the only person who had known him when he had nothing and never changed. When he became rich, Paul dialed the number. "Paul?" Maxwell's voice came tired and thick with sleep. "You okay? I need to see you." Now Maxwell was fully awake. "Tonight?" "Yes. It can't wait." 15 minutes later, Maxwell arrived at Paul's house wearing slippers and a hoodie. Paul led him to the study and closed the door. "I want to pretend I've lost everything," Paul said, staring at the books on his shelf. I want to see what Lucy and her family will do if I stop being the man with the money." Maxwell sat down slowly. "You're serious?" Paul nodded. "Max, I don't know if they love me or just the money. I gave everything. Everything, Max. And now they act like I'm nothing but an ATM." Maxwell rubbed his beard. "This is dangerous. You're talking about your wife. I need to know before I die of pain, before I lose my mind." Maxwell didn't speak for a long time. Then he nodded. "Okay. If you're going to do this, I'll help you. But you must prepare your heart." And so the test began. The very next week, Mr. Paul came home looking defeated, his shoulders slumped, his shirt wrinkled, his shoes dusty. Lucy was lounging on the couch scrolling her phone when he entered. "Are you okay?" she asked, not looking up. "I got bad news today," Paul said softly, dropping his keys. "The company is down. We've lost big contracts. I may have to start selling some things." Lucy blinked. "You're joking, right?" Paul shook his head. "No, I wish I was." She sat up slowly. "So, what does that mean?" "It means there'll be no more trips for now. We have to cut costs. I may even sell the other car." Silence. Then Lucy laughed dryly. "You? Broke? Please, Paul, stop playing." But when he began cancelling bookings, stopped giving her monthly allowance, and no longer changed her phones, she knew it wasn't a joke. At first, she tried to understand. She encouraged him, said a few prayers aloud, and even cooked one evening. But as days turned into weeks, her behavior began to change. No more soft words, no more smiles. She moved out of the master bedroom, saying she needed space. Her siblings stopped greeting him well. Her mother began to murmur loudly, calling him just another disappointment. Paul kept quiet. He swept the compound himself. He cooked what he could. He washed his clothes with his own hands. Every night, he sat alone on the porch, watching as the house he built with love turned into a stranger's shelter, and no one noticed his pain. It was a Thursday morning. Rain had fallen all night. The ground was wet. The air was cold. But Mr. Paul was outside, sweeping the compound quietly. His clothes were soaked. His slippers were worn. His hands trembled slightly from the morning chill. Inside the house, Lucy was in bed, scrolling through her phone, giggling at something her friend had posted online. She didn't notice Paul. She didn't care that he was doing the work the housemaid used to do when things were good. The maid had left weeks ago. Lucy said she could no longer pay her. Paul didn't argue. He just started doing the work himself. After sweeping, he entered the kitchen. The pot was empty. The sink was full of dirty plates. He washed everything in silence, cooked a little rice, and served a plate for Lucy. She came down later, looked at the food, and hissed. "Is this what you're giving me? Plain rice with no meat?" Paul looked at her. "That's all we have for now." She rolled her eyes and walked away, picking up her phone again. He watched her go. Something inside him ached deeply, not because of the rice, but because of how far they had fallen. Or maybe how far she had always been, and he was just now seeing it. Later that afternoon, her siblings came around. They laughed loudly in the sitting room. Paul stayed in the kitchen, pretending to be busy. He heard one of them say, "So this is the man that used to carry our family like a project? Look at him now. Ordinary rice. He's serving like a waiter." Laughter followed. Then Lucy's voice, "He still thinks he's the man of the house. Let him continue pretending." Paul stood frozen. He looked at his own hands. Hands that once signed million-naira checks. Hands that once held Lucy close on cold nights. Hands that had wiped her tears when her mother was ill. Now those hands were washing plates and shaking. In shame, days turned into weeks. Lucy stopped talking to him unless it was to complain. She invited her friends over almost every weekend. They wore flashy clothes, drank expensive wine, bought with money from the boutique Paul gave her, and made fun of her broke husband. Paul would greet them politely. Some ignored him. Others giggled and whispered. He felt like a stranger, in his own house. One Saturday, as he was sweeping the back of the house, Lucy shouted from the balcony, "Paul! You missed a spot. Are you blind?" He dropped the broom and looked up slowly. Her mother was beside her, sipping juice. "Don't mind him," she said. "Useless man." That night he sat alone in the visitor's room. The lights were off. Only the streetlight outside gave a faint glow through the window. He picked up his phone and stared at Maxwell's name. He had wanted to wait longer. He had wanted to be patient. But that night broke him. He called. "It's time," he whispered. Maxwell replied, "Say no more. I'm ready." Paul ended the call and sat back, staring into the dark room. He had seen enough. The test was over. The house was quiet the next morning, but not peaceful. It was the kind of quiet that came after too many storms, when the roof was leaking and no one bothered to fix it. Paul stayed in the visitor's room. He no longer slept in the master bedroom. Lucy had changed the curtains. There, thrown out their wedding photo, and placed new perfume bottles on the dresser. Paul's presence was no longer welcome. He heard laughter downstairs. Lucy's friends had come again. This time, Paul did not go to the kitchen. He stayed on the staircase, listening. "Girl, you're strong." "Oh," one of them said. "If it were me, I would have chased him out already." Lucy laughed. "I'm only managing him. He should thank me for not throwing him into the street." Her cousin joined in. "All the money he used to brag with, where is it now? You're the one running this house." Paul felt his chest tighten. He slowly climbed down the stairs, carrying a small nylon bag with 2 shirts and a pair of trousers. The same clothes he had worn before he became a billionaire. As he walked into the parlor, all heads turned. He looked at them, his wife, her friends, her cousins, people he once called family, people he had fed, clothed, and protected. Now they were laughing at him. He stood tall despite the weight in his chest. "I just want to say thank you," he said quietly. Lucy frowned. "Thank you for what?" "For everything," Paul replied. "For showing me the truth." One of the girls chuckled. "Is he all right?" Paul turned to his wife. "You were once my joy, Lucy, but now I don't even know who you are." Lucy rolled her eyes. "Please don't start with your nonsense." Paul nodded slowly. "I'm leaving this house, but hear me well. When I return, it will not be as a servant. I will not explain myself again." Lucy stood. "You're leaving? With what money? Where are you going, Paul?" He looked at her, a long, silent look, and walked out of the house. No one followed him. No one begged him to stay. That night he slept in Maxwell's guest room. No air conditioner, no special bed, just peace. And that peace was more than all the riches in the world. The next few days, the house changed again. Lucy no longer cooked at all. She ate out or ordered food. She told her friends that Paul was finally gone. Her boutique was doing well. She wore new shoes and posted smiling pictures online. One day, as she sat in the parlor laughing, her elder brother walked in looking worried. "Lucy," he said. "I called Paul's office today." She blinked. "And?" "They said he was never broke, that he took a short leave." Lucy's hand dropped the phone. "What did you say?" "I think he planned this," her brother whispered. "He wanted to test you." Her heart stopped for a moment, then she forced a laugh. "That's not possible." But even as she spoke, her hands were shaking. Lucy could not sleep that night. She turned on the bed. She turned again. But sleep did not come. The words her brother said kept ringing in her ears. He was never broke. He wanted to test you. She sat up and looked around the master bedroom, the room that used to be their love nest. Now it was full of new things, but it felt cold. No more laughter at night, no gentle touches, just her and her silence. The next morning, she tried to ignore the feeling. She wore her finest dress, sprayed her most expensive perfume, and went to her boutique like nothing happened. Her friends came in to greet her. They laughed, they gossiped, but inside her something was shifting. By evening, she received a message on her phone. It was from Maxwell. You will see him again. Get ready. Her heart jumped. She read the message over and over. She couldn't understand it. That same evening, Paul was getting dressed in a quiet hotel suite. Maxwell stood beside him, adjusting. His collar? You sure about this? Maxwell asked. Paul looked at himself in the mirror. He wore a dark suit, neat shoes, and the quiet strength of a man who had endured enough. It's time, he said softly. Maxwell nodded. Then let's go. Back at the house, Lucy and her family were in the parlor. The same parlor where they had mocked Paul. The same place where they called him a disgrace. Her mother was laughing at something on the television. Her sisters were eating suya and drinking malt. The door was open to let in fresh air. Suddenly, a black SUV drove into the compound. Everyone paused. 2 men stepped out. Then the third man followed. It was Paul, but not the Paul they remembered. He looked different, stronger, sharper, richer. His skin glowed. His beard was neatly trimmed. His steps were sure. Lucy stood, frozen. Her phone dropped to the floor. Her mother gasped. Is that? Paul entered the parlor without saying a word. Everyone was silent. He looked at Lucy first. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. He turned to her family. Good evening, he said. I see you're all doing well. No one responded. Then Paul dropped a white envelope on the center table. Those are the documents to the house. It's in Lucy's name now. I don't need it. He turned to go. Paul, Lucy said, finally finding her voice. Please wait. He stopped, but did not turn. Tears welled up in her eyes. You were never broke? He nodded slowly. I wanted to see your heart. She dropped to her knees. I'm sorry. Her mother and siblings joined her. They all begged. Paul faced them again, pain in his eyes. I helped you all. I gave you more than I gave myself. And when I had nothing, you showed me who you really. Ah, Lucy cried out. Forgive me, please. I thought you were gone forever. Paul looked at her. I forgive you, but I cannot come back to this house. Not as your husband. Gasps filled the room. Lucy's tears poured. Paul walked out the same way he walked in, calm, silent, sure. And this time, it was them who were left behind in shock and shame. Lucy sat on the floor, long after Paul left. The room that once felt lively now felt empty, even with all her family around her. No one spoke. No one laughed. They just sat in silence, the sound of shame louder than any words. Her mother finally broke the silence. So, he was testing us all along? Lucy didn't answer. She stared at the front door, hoping it would open. Again. Hoping Paul would change his mind, hoping this was just another one of his quiet games. But deep down, she knew he was serious. She had pushed him too far. Later that night, she locked herself in their bedroom and cried. She remembered the man who used to come home early, just to cook for her. The man who surprised her with flowers, who sat beside her whenever she was sick, who used to kiss her forehead before going to bed. She had lost him. And it wasn't because he was poor. It was because she became proud, ungrateful, cold. The next morning, Lucy went to Maxwell's office. She waited for over an hour before he agreed to see her. She entered his office, her eyes swollen from crying. Maxwell sat across the table and said nothing. I came to beg, she whispered. Maxwell looked up at her. You didn't beg when he was sweeping the compound. Tears rolled down her face. Please, Maxwell, just tell me where he is. He doesn't want to see you right now. Please, I didn't know. You didn't know? Maxwell said, cutting her off. You didn't know that you insulted him in front of strangers. You didn't know he washed clothes with his hands while you partied with your friends. She looked down in shame. He loved you, Maxwell said, but you loved his money more. I was scared, she whispered. I didn't know how to live without comfort. I thought he had failed. And now you know better, Maxwell said, standing. Go home, Lucy, heal. But don't expect things to go back to how they were. Paul is no longer your husband. He gave you everything. But you gave him nothing when he needed just one thing: respect. She left the office in tears. Back at home, her siblings sat quietly. Her mother cooked, but no one ate. It was like joy had packed its bags and left with Mr. Paul. Days turned into weeks. Word spread around town about what had happened. Some people mocked Lucy. Others pitied her. But everyone agreed on one thing: Mr. Paul had done the right thing. One morning, a lawyer came to the house. He handed Lucy a set of documents. The house is yours. So is the boutique. Mr. Paul says you earned them through his past love, not your present actions. She held the papers with shaking hands. He had given her everything, again. But this time, it wasn't a gift of love. It was a final goodbye. Lucy stood in the middle of the parlor, the documents still in her hand. The boutique was hers. The house was hers. Everything Paul built for her, he left behind, but without him, none of it felt real. She looked around the house and saw memories that haunted her more than comforted her. The flower vase he bought from Rome. The painting they picked together from a street market in Greece. The couch they both sat on the day he told her, "Even if I lose everything, I still have you." And now he was gone. The house was full, yet completely empty. Her siblings no longer laughed. They stayed in their rooms. Even her mother, who used to shout and give orders, now sat in silence most days. No one wanted to talk about it, but everyone knew they had failed the man who gave them everything. One afternoon, Lucy tried to cook Paul's favorite soup, okra with goat meat. She remembered how he once said, "Lucy, the way you slice okra, ye fit win award." She smiled sadly. Now she sliced slowly, her eyes blurry with tears. She placed the pot on fire, tasted the salt, and turned off the heat. But she couldn't eat. The tears were too heavy. She left the kitchen and went to their bedroom, now only hers. She opened a drawer and found his old wristwatch, the one she used to tease him about. "You and this your lucky watch," she would say. "One day it will fall apart. He always wore it anyway." She held it to her chest and whispered, "Please come back." But Paul did not return. He was building again, only this time he was building a new life without her. In another part of town, Mr. Paul sat on the balcony of a new house. Not too big, not too small, just quiet, peaceful. His heart was still healing, but at least it was no longer bleeding. Maxwell visited often, bringing food and laughter. "You're smiling more now," Maxwell said one evening, sipping juice. "I feel lighter," Paul replied. "Like I dropped a heavy load I carried for too long. Do you miss her?" Paul was silent for a while. "Yes," he said, "but not the woman she became." He looked out at the night sky. "I miss the Lucy who prayed with me, the one who held my hand in church and danced in the rain with me in Paris. But that Lucy died the day I lost money." Maxwell nodded. "Some things money can't fix." Paul turned to him and said, "I forgive them, but I will never forget." Back in her boutique, Lucy sat in the office alone. Customers still came. Business still moved. But inside her, nothing moved anymore. She tried to smile for the camera. She posted new pictures, but every smile was empty. Her followers noticed. One comment under her photo said, "Where is your husband? The one who made you glow?" She couldn't reply, because she didn't know how to say, "I lost him," not because he died, but because I killed everything good in him. It was a Saturday morning. The sun was bright. Birds sang softly. The wind moved gently through the trees, but Lucy's world was still dark. She wore a plain black dress. No makeup, no perfume, just a heart full of regret. She walked slowly toward Paul's new house. It had taken her weeks to find it. She had asked around quietly. Not because she wanted to disturb him, but because she needed to say goodbye. She reached the gate and stood there for a long time, her hands trembling. Then the gate opened slowly. It was Maxwell. He looked at her, then stepped aside without a word. She walked in, her legs shaking. There he was, Paul, sitting under a tree, sipping tea, reading a book. He looked up and their eyes met. For a moment, time stood still. Lucy stepped closer. "Good morning," she said softly. He nodded. "Good morning." There was silence again, then she dropped to her knees. "I'm not here to beg for anything. I just came to say, I'm sorry." Paul looked at her, really looked at her. Her eyes were tired. Her face was older, her voice was low and honest. "I destroyed everything good between us," she whispered. "I let pride speak louder than love. I let my family use your kindness, and I pushed you until you had no more strength. Left to stay." Tears ran down her cheeks. "I still sleep on your side of the bed," she said. "I still wait for your footsteps at the door, but they never come." Paul sighed deeply. "I forgave you long ago," he said gently. "But some wounds, they don't go back to how they were." She nodded slowly. "I understand. I just wanted you to hear it from me." He stood and walked closer. He looked down at her, then reached out and helped her up. "I don't hate you, Lucy," he said, "but I can't live that life again. That house is full of ghosts, not the kind that scare you, but the kind that remind you of what you lost." She covered her mouth and cried. Paul offered her a clean handkerchief. "You are still the woman I once loved," he said softly. "But that love died in silence, when I was mocked for being poor, when I cooked and cleaned and nobody said thank you, when I cried alone and you laughed with your friends." Lucy wiped her tears. "I'll leave now," she said. "But thank you for listening." He watched her walk back toward the gate. She paused before leaving and said, without turning, "Even if we never speak again, I want you to know I was proud to be your wife, even if I didn't show it." Then she left. Paul sat back under the tree. He closed his eyes. There was pain, there was peace, but above all, there was closure.